there's something, I'll use a word called purgatory. You guys can search it up. It means staying in one place, and it's almost like you have a chess piece and you have to move that chess piece. And if you don't move that chess piece, you're either gonna slip back or evolve and move forward. And if you don't move that chess piece, you're gonna stay in that purgatory mind state. You're gonna stay in that ditch, that dump, and you don't want to do that because life will just continue throwing shit at you. You need to push it away and keep moving. It's just how life works, man. It's about movement.
Hi, my name is Sam Maxwell. During the course of this documentary, I will talk to you about how young people in modern day society deal with grief and bereavement of young family and friends. Throughout the course of this production, I will cover all areas of young loss, including suicide, drug-related overdoses, and road traffic accidents. This project has been extremely personal to me, as I have experienced the loss of a dear friend in a road collision last November. This incident has inspired me to create this documentary, not only to bring awareness, but to offer my support and knowledge on the stages of grief, and to let people know that who are going through the same feelings as myself, that it's okay to feel different or sad. I have had the opportunity to meet many people along the way, and I have conducted many interviews of people who have gone through this firsthand, or people who have worked professionally in the business of the young person. The first of these was Lindsay. She lost her 17-year-old son Zach on the 19th of May 2008. This is Lindsay's story.
Hello, my name's Lindsay. I lost my son in a road traffic accident on the 19th of May 2008. He was my only child.
Okay, how old was
He was 17, he was 4 weeks off his 18th birthday when he was killed.
Can you loosely, or however much detail you like, just describe the accident? What happened?
He'd gone a different way that morning because there were roadworks on his usual route. So he'd gone down into Rochdale, put petrol in his bike, and then gone up Oaken Ferry Road. There's a side street called Oaken Rod Hill, and it's quite it's not an obvious side street. They actually have a mirror on the end of it, so whoever's pulling out can see what's happening on the main road. And he'd overtaken a couple of cars because it was slow moving traffic. They were only doing 25 mile an hour. The BMW was the last car, and then he'd have been on his way. But as he approached the BMW, a Porsche was coming out the side street. The driver of the BMW panicked, didn't think he was going to stop, and she swerved. And her swerving caused Zach to come off his bike and fall into oncoming traffic. The car coming the other way, unfortunately, ran over his head. He was killed instantly. And I think somewhere in my head I must have known that he'd gone. I threw my phone at a work colleague and I said, I don't know what they're saying to me, will you talk to them? And I got up and walked out. And another work colleague came out after me. And she said, you know, the police are coming. And where I worked is a mill and it was down a dirt track, so I'd walked up with my work colleague to the main road because I knew the police didn't exactly know where they were going. In the meantime, I rang my husband, and my boss turned up while I was waiting, and he'd just been stuck in the traffic on Bury Road. And when he got out of the van, he said, what's going on? And I said, police have rang, Zach's had an accident. His face. And then my husband turned up. And then the police turned up. And the first thing I remember is them trying to get me to sit in the police car. And I just kept saying, tell me what's happened to him. And they wouldn't tell me. They wanted me to sit in the car, and I remember screaming at them and saying, tell me, just tell me. I didn't finish. I said, is he dead? And he said, yeah. And
I wanted to ask her about her particular strategies when it came to coping with such a loss. I went through many different stages in coping with the loss of my friend. I had arranged an interview with Liz, the student support officer at the Manchester College.
Hi, my name's Liz Jakes. I'm a student mentor at the Manchester College. I've worked in education for 17 years in various educational establishments, working with young people from primary age right through to 18, 19. I had lots of experience of working with young people because quite often my job meant that I was working with children who had been labelled as difficult or challenging, but quite often that difficult and challenging behaviour came from a loss quite often at a young age. There is an absolutely staggering statistic actually that says that 7% of children who are educated in pupil referral units or alternative provision have actually suffered a bereavement in the previous 2 years. And part of that problem is that instead of dealing with it and letting children explore their feelings, they basically just get labelled as difficult or awkward, or they're not following rules, which results in a downward spiral of behaviour. It's quite often ending them being permanently excluded from school.
It usually stems from...
And it usually stems from a bereavement, because bereavements, people deal with bereavements in many different ways. And as an adult, you probably have more emotional intelligence to actually accept that you're having really bad feelings. But as a young person, you don't always recognise those feelings as grief, that sense of loss or guilt or regret that often comes with losing someone that's close to you. And quite often the adults around you are dealing with their own loss and grief, so don't actually know to give that child attention. So in the middle of all that sorrow, quite often the young people are the ones that are just left. And I've found from experience that the grief manifests itself in different ways. Everybody deals with grief in different ways, and you don't actually know how you're going to deal with it until it's happened to you. So I can give you a specific example that when my mum died 15 years ago, I just kept myself busy and grieved in my own time when I didn't want anybody to see. My younger sister had a shrine to my mum and talked about her every day and played songs. My other sister, you wouldn't have known anything that would have actually happened because she just didn't talk about it. And that's absolutely fine, because that's our own way of dealing with the grief. But as a young person, you may not have those outlets to do that. So you go to school and something triggers a memory, or you're feeling overwhelmed with anxiety and sadness, and you refuse to do something, and somebody then says, well, they won't follow an instruction. And my personal opinion is that we should deal with young people's grief much more seriously to offset some of those problems that they might have by not dealing with it at the time.
At this point, I really wanted to do some more research into the stages of grief. All people, young and old, deal with grief in different ways, but there is a general cycle which takes its turn. This cycle is the Kubler-Ross model. The Swiss psychiatrist Kubler-Ross first introduced her 5 stages of grief model in her book On Death and Dying. Kubler-Ross's model was based off her work with terminally ill patients and has received much criticism in the years since, mainly because people studying her model mistakenly believe this is the specific order in which people grieve, and that all people go through the stages. Denial is a stage that can initially help you survive the loss. You might think life makes no sense or has no meaning and is too overwhelming. common in this stage to wonder how life will go on this different state. You're in a state of shock, because life, as once you knew it, has changed in an instant. In the stage of anger, you start to live in actual reality again and not preferable reality. Anger might start to set in. This is a common stage to think, why me? And life's not fair. You might look to blame others for the cause of your grief, and also may direct your anger to close friends or family. You find it incomprehensible how something like this could happen to you. Researchers and mental health professionals agree that this is a necessary stage of grief. In the stage of bargaining, when something bad happens, have you ever caught yourself making a deal with God? Please God, if you hear my husband, I will strive to be the best wife I can ever be, and can never complain again. This is bargaining. In a way, this stage is false hope. You might falsely make yourself believe that you can avoid the grief through a type of negotiation. You are willing to make a major life change in an attempt toward normality. Depression is a commonly accepted form of grief. In fact, most people associate depression immediately with grief as its present emotion. It represents the emptiness we feel when we are living in a reality and realise the person or situation is gone or over. In this stage, you might withdraw from life, feel numb, live in a fog, and not want to get out of bed. You don't want to be around others, don't feel like talking, and experience feelings of hopelessness. You might even experience suicidal thoughts, thinking what's the point of going on? The last stage of grief is identified by Kubler-Ross's acceptance. Not in the stage that it's okay to my husband died, rather, my husband died but I'm going to be okay. In this stage your emotions may begin to stabilise. You re-enter reality. You come to terms with the fact that the new reality is that your partner is never coming back, or that you are going to succumb to your illness and die soon. It is definitely a time of adjustment and readjustment. There are good days and there are bad days, and there are good days again.
After I completed all my research on the Kubler-Ross model, I decided to conduct 2 more interviews. One of which was with Louise Orgill, a media tutor from the Manchester College. I asked her how she coped personally and how she had to maintain the strength of her students in such a difficult time.
Yeah, I think it's difficult losing a student for a number of reasons, because you on a personal level, as like a professional level, you have a relationship with your student, don't you? So I mean that in itself is just horrendous. Like, you know, the thought that person that was so vibrant and had so much promise isn't going to be able to get what their dreams that they wanted to do. So there's that part of it, like the sort of the personal and professional level of like that student not being there anymore, but then also the disappointment for them and for the family that they're not going to be able to achieve what they wanted to achieve, but then also the heartbreak of what it's done to all the other students in your class that you care so much about, you know, and that's been one of the most difficult things, like seeing the impact on the class, and the you know, how do I put you all back together again, you know?
After this interview, I decided to do some more research on the actual facts and statistics of young deaths in the UK. I looked into road traffic accident deaths, drug overdoses and suicide rates. According to the annual accident report of 2018, fatalities of road traffic accidents in the EU has decreased in 2016 compared to 2007. As you can see on this chart, it has decreased from 50 million to 28 million.
As you can see on this pie chart from the Annual Accident Report 2018, only 8% of road traffic accidents are on the motorway, 38% are inside urban areas, i.e. cities, and a massive 54% of road traffic accidents involving fatalities were on rural roads or non-motorways. In terms of suicide in the UK, 5,821 people took their own life in the year 2017, according to the Samaritans website. They say middle-aged men are still at the greatest risk of committing suicide in the UK. 4,382 men and only 1,439 women lost their life through suicide in the UK. This table shows the UK suicide numbers for all persons, male and female, by age group between the years of 2015 and 2017. As you can see, overall, over the past 3 years, the number of deaths for persons aged 10 and over is decreasing slightly by year. According to the Office for National Statistics in England and Wales, 3,756 deaths relating to drug poisoning in England and Wales in 2017, at a rate of 66.1 deaths per 1 million population, and similar to levels seen in 2016. 2/3 of drug-related deaths were related to drug misuse, accounting for 43.7 deaths per 1 million in 2017. One of the biggest issues for me is the final point. Deaths involving cocaine and phenyl continues to rise, while deaths related to new psychoactive substances halved in 2017. As you can see on this chart, it shows age standardised mortality rates for deaths related to drug poisoning by sex registered between 1993 to 2017 in England and Wales. As I mentioned in my previous point, I feel the biggest cause for concern in the UK is cocaine deaths. Cocaine deaths has risen again for the 6th consecutive year. There were 432 deaths related to cocaine in 2017, compared to 371 deaths in 2016. Cocaine is the second most commonly used drug, according to the Crime Survey for England and Wales, after cannabis, although the survey only covers cocaine, amphetamine and ecstasy among Class A drugs. The recent European Drug Report noted the rising production of cocaine in its origin countries and higher drug purity have been felt in Europe. Further, the report identified England and Wales as the highest users of cocaine in Europe based on recent use among young adults. There are many ways a young person can lose their life, but clearly road traffic accidents takes the top spot. My next interview was with Curtis Battock, a close friend of Pete's. Here's what he had to say about his experiences in college the next day, week and month after the incident.
It was just like not something that didn't seem real. It just didn't seem like, it felt like you were in a dream, and it's something that you were looking back on like, yo, is this really happening? Am I just gonna wake up out of a dream right now? And it just wasn't, it's just not normal. It's just not a normal vibe. It's not something you come across every day. At that point, no, definitely not. It just didn't seem real. It's hard to wrap your head around stuff like that. You know, death is always something that's hard to wrap your head around. So it just, as much as it didn't feel real, it felt like something was missing, something wasn't right, and the balance was off. The energy was just nothing you would have ever felt before. It was very heavy-hearted, as some would say.
I proceeded to ask him about his particular coping strategies and mechanisms to letting out his emotions.
I feel like for me, it was just being creative. Not even being creative, but just using my artistic ways to get my message, not get my message out there, but what I had to say. So just like you had to say stuff, you just said it directly. I had a way of saying it other than that. So if you don't hear me say anything in person, you go listen to my music and you'll hear everything that I want to say, because that was my outlet. Everyone has their own outlet, whether that may be just talking to someone, whether it be painting, whether it be writing music. So I think it's just about talking, letting it out, finding a way to lay it out. If it's going to be artistic, if it's going to be creative, you just need to find a way to talk about it and do something about it. You can't sit in your own demise, because fear attracts fear, so you mess yourself up.
I decided to leave my interview there. I wanted to leave this documentary in a positive light. As I mentioned in the beginning of this video, I want this production to bring awareness to people on young loss rates and how dealing with grief in your own way is absolutely fine. There is no right or wrong way to grieve the loss of a young family member or friend, but remember there are always people to help when you feel there is nowhere to turn. In terms of professional help, there is suicide hotlines for when you feel at your lowest point, as well as people in NHS who can help you with drug-related addiction. When it comes to road traffic accidents, you do have the help of your liaison officer. If you feel like you want to talk to someone who has felt your pain, then I am free to contact on my Facebook or Instagram profiles. One thing I've learned is that life is highly unpredictable, and sometimes it's better to just go with the flow rather than try and plan everything out. Don't ever get too comfortable. Be ready for change.
Yeah. Life is so unpredictable. Oh, Father God, show me a miracle. Oh, never knew this would be so difficult. From the physical to the spiritual. Now you're gone, I wish you never left. All day long, been thinking about your death. Write the song, hope it release the stress. Swear this life is so unpredictable.